Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George Affleck.
And it's time for
UnSpun.
UnSpun.
Well, I added a little O at the end because I was in Spain.
Oh, Barcelona.
For the Smart Cities Conference. So I'm very smart now. Very smart.
Are you?
Well, it was a tech conference. It was quite interesting.
Let's put it to the test. Oh, yeah. How long did you go for?
The conference was 3 days, so I was there all week and learned a lot about cities and how they can be more smart through technology, through the environment. So it was very helpful, and also the private sector and what they could be doing.
We're going to be touching on a lot of that stuff over the next 30 minutes or so here on the UnSpun podcast. Reminder, you can follow George _Affleck on Twitter at Jody Vance, at UnSpun Podcast, and the Orca BC is where you get sort of the bits and pieces that you need to be in the know for. Many of us have been glued to our television screens over the last number of days with the impeachment inquiry happening south of the border.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have realized that Justin Trudeau was announcing his new cabinet had it not interrupted my regular scheduled impeachment inquiry programming that I was glued to. But it was interesting because I was so stuck in on U.S. politics that I thought, well, maybe I should pay attention to what's happening here. And
it's true.
There were some surprises.
He had a smaller group to choose from this time, a lot less MPs to choose from, and so he had to move some people around.
So explain that a little bit for somebody who maybe doesn't understand when you move into a minority situation. It seems rather obvious to some, but to others that are like...
Your pool is not quite as deep, so you have to kind of play around. And he has other challenges related to the fact that he didn't get any people elected in central Canada, or whatever, Western Canada, or the middle of Canada.
They like to call it the West when they're in the East.
I know. I look at Saskatchewan and Alberta and Manitoba didn't get anybody elected. So, and so he's looking at how do I fix that? How do I solve that problem? And his solution appears to be moving Freeland to the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs and Deputy Prime Minister out of Foreign Affairs. That's a big decision because she's been a very productive and effective, in many opinions, as a Foreign Affairs Minister. So
that was one of the first things that I said to you in our pre-meeting today when it comes to Chrystia Freeland. I'm a fan of how she conducts herself, whether I agree with every decision or how she, reacts to certain things. I mean, she seems very level-headed and very learned and very methodical in how she conducts herself. And in the world, on the global stage, as the International Affairs Minister, I felt confident.
Right. You want to have somebody who's representing our country being cool and calm and collected and
communicative. There were a lot of situations.
Our role as a country, Canada's always been sort of the facilitator of a lot of proper procedures internationally. But
she wasn't mushy though. She strong and So when I saw the move to Deputy of Intergovernmental Affairs, I thought, wait, we need her on the global stuff. Yeah. But you made a very good point in our pre-meeting, being hello.
Well, Canada's in a bit of a mess. I mean, this issue is Wexit. Alberta's really mad. They're pushing that hard, and I think that we have to. And we're seeing this happen in countries all over the world. Certainly, I was just in Spain, and you've got the whole Barcelona, versus the rest of the country. The whole, anyways, and then what's happening in Israel with their fact they're going to have a third election now. By the way, both those countries have proportional representation as their system, and that's coming up again too. And as far as in Canada, all these sore losers wanting to switch our system because we don't want first past the post. We want proportional representation now. And
well, as you said, the middle of the country, those three provinces did not vote in any Liberal.
Yeah, and so I think Prime Minister's going, I don't want, and you've got Quebec, you've got the resurgence of the BQ.
Yep.
So I think the Prime Minister, with a good reason, has to put somebody strong in there who's good at what is kind of, affairs of the government. In this case, it's province to province, city to city. How do we make this country stay together?
Unity. Yeah, instead of all this, we're all going to just be out of Canada. Where are you going?
Yeah.
Where are you going? If you're going out of Canada, where are you going?
We live in the best country in the world.
In the world. But there needs to be a reminder of that because it seems like the shift, I'm so glad that you're able to unspin that for me because we hadn't talked about Chrystia Freeland and I was Like, oh God, like we need her with what's been going on in Brexit and what's going on in the U.S. and what's happening with, Canadians in custody in China and nuclear testing here and unrest in there. And, there's a lot going on that I felt like, at least she's had a number of years of dealing with all that. Why would you move her? And when you explained it to me, because we need her here first.
Let's keep Canada together.
Before we go out.
Show off around the world.
Totally. So other things that are happening in Canada that kind of freak me out. I'm on Twitter and I'm watching Conservatives in Alberta attacking Jann Arden for making a very off-the-cuff kind of Twitter joke about Jason Kenney and Doug Ford walk into a bar, actually a wall. And it's just kind of a joke, right? But Conservatives are touchy like Trumpers are touchy.
Yeah.
It's getting a little bit.
And she's the patron saint of music of Alberta. I don't know. She's from Alberta. She lives in Alberta.
She's a proud Calgarian. She's been the Grand Marshal at the Stampede Parade, and she shoots her program, #1 show in Canadian television last year, the Jann Show, and she shoots it in Calgary. Like, she gives back to her community. She lives there. She wants to be there. She could be, in a penthouse apartment in Toronto if she wanted.
The Conservative movement is very challenged right now. They're trying to find their place.
Yeah.
And the other ministry which has become a bit of a joke, but I can understand it, was the Minister of the Middle Class.
Oh, right, we forgot to talk about
Ministry of the Middle Class.
What does that mean, middle class?
It's so, having been in Vancouver politics, and you create these committees which are really targeted. In this case, Trudeau's whole campaign is all about the middle. How do we focus on making more middle class? Don't we all want to be middle class? Well, it's better than being poor, and for the rich people, it's middle class, upper middle class, and so it's a way for him to focus on his main middle, which is not only middle class, but it's also the middle of the spectrum, which is how you win in the federal government. Clearly, that was what happened in this federal election. The Conservatives just couldn't find their way in the places where they needed to win in Ontario and Quebec and British Columbia. So the Conservatives are now challenged, trying to figure out, now the Liberals have created this ministry. The Conservatives are all kind of tearing each other apart a little bit, and you've got the CPC fired 2 senior staff from their behind the scenes, which was interesting. And then you've got Doug Ford, who, while that joke is interesting, I think it was more interesting to see Doug Ford hanging out with the Prime Minister, coming out of a meeting saying, yeah, that went not bad, pretty good meetings. He was very
media trained.
Oh my God,
he was media trained.
But
he was told
effective.
To stop talking
yeah, but there's
like
something
that.
else going on here.
And
I think I think it was Bill Thielman tweeted out saying, "Say goodbye to
Scheer,"
because that's what this is. And what does that mean? Though, does that mean we can expect Doug Ford to run for the leadership of the CPC? I would say probably.
Yeah, I think
why not? Right. And so he's positioning himself for that middle. He came out of that press conference acting very, very kind and thoughtful.
Aware of the needs of all Canadians.
And I think that's what somebody, I think it was Bill or for somebody else tweeted, who would have thought that Doug Ford was the guy that would be about bringing Canada together? And it's true. It's like,
you almost knocked over the table.
So, no, it's very interesting to see how the Conservatives are going to try and find their way around the middle now, because they know they need the middle. Just like in Vancouver, we've talked about this in Vancouver politics, which is almost like a microcosm of Canada. You need, and in actually British Columbia, look at the NDP and you find that middle is how you win.
That's why my column's called The Middle.
Yeah, that's why.
Because it's not that crazy to think, okay, how about we listen to all sides and then find how all these can connect centrally so everybody gets a little bit of what they're looking for out of being a Vancouverite or a British Columbian or a Canadian or wherever you happen to hang your hat. But everybody's wants and needs are very different. Like doing a national radio show, when I get callers from rural Saskatchewan, their wants and needs are very, very different than the people that are living in Dunbar, in the Lower Mainland. Like it's so how do you find the middle between those?
But if you're in politics and you're all hovering around the middle,
you don't win.
What happens, and because where is the middle?
Yeah.
And where are the extremists on both sides of the spectrum? If there's no extremists, there's no middle. And so the middle becomes mushy, and then suddenly it opens it up for extremist parties, I think, too. So this is game that they're playing, but it's not as easy for any party to say, we're going to be like this now.
No.
Because the machine behind that...
politically you can't. I know a lot of people who vote Conservative because of strictly finances, strictly because they are going to take more money home at the end of the day. They want to be able to have their write-offs. They want to have places to hide their money should they want to, legally hide their money. And they just turn a blind eye to those things that, maybe they have a house full of daughters and they're going to just turn a blind eye to the conservative extremist piece that maybe wants to tell your daughter what they can do with their body. But they'll still vote conservative because at the end of the day, their daughters are going to have more money to be able to da-da-da. Like there's more strategy to it.
The economy provides other things that happen because of an educated society.
Correct. And there are other people that will vote Liberal regardless of what photographs come up that show horribly racist leaning, and some people just can't believe that anybody would vote for Justin Trudeau after brownface and blackface. And yet there are Liberals who are like, I don't really care what he did at 29. I think he's learned from that and we're moving forward. Like so while I'm calling out the conservative side, I'm also saying that about the Liberal side. And then we're sitting with an NDP government in British Columbia who's supposed to be super union forward and everybody's on strike.
How many strikes are we going to have this week? I mean,
can we get to provincial on that?
Sure. I mean, that's a nice transition there. They're in the middle of their convention as we record. We're recording on a Sunday this week because I was away. And there was the internet for some strange reason. I was at a smart city conference, and I couldn't get a good signal.
That's hilarious.
It was, ironic.
I think you were just enjoying some tapas and some cerveza.
I did, and wine is quite cheap there, so it was. Anyways,
we digress.
But the NDP convention is happening.
It's like you at a convention.
Yeah, that's right.
So the NDP convention is happening in Victoria at this exact same hotel, one room away from where the BCTF is having their convention.
So awkward hallway, awkward urinal conversation.
Or hilarious.
Like, hi, how's it going? Oh, this is what's happening down at your meeting.
Do you talk at urinals?
Oh God, yeah. Guys are always talking.
God.
Just don't look down. It's the rule. Look straight ahead.
And chat.
We
digress.
Yes.
I love it. Okay, so what's happening?
Convention, and so they're talking about all their policies, which is what you do at conventions. They have them every 2 years, and this one's an important one because it'll be what probably will be their policies moving into pretty much the election. There are a few policies like their $400 renter program has been punted down the road. They were going to give $400 to every renter. As their campaign promise.
That was like years ago.
And now they punted
promised
it within 4 years. The premier's saying so.
Like
that
when
makes
we
it
get
after
ride
next
sharing.
Ride sharing.
Are we going to get ride sharing?
Hey,
and
ride sharing doesn't happen in Barcelona. They cut ride sharing's gone in Barcelona. I was in Barcelona a few years ago. Ride sharing. Went this year, no ride sharing.
Why?
Taxis are back because they mandated it. They said they put all these rules in place saying that the ride sharing wasn't working, and the taxis, I guess, lobbied, and so Uber left, and they all left. There's just no ride sharing there, so you have to grab a cab. And actually, it was pretty easy to grab a cab. There was a huge. When I got to the airport, there was like cabs everywhere.
Well, that's good.
But
as long as people can get where they need to go.
Yes, but
that's my real goal. Like Lyft and Uber and that. If you love it, great. I just never want to be standing on a street corner for hours in the dark and the rain by myself ever again. And I've had it happen way too often. So something needs to give, and it needs to happen sooner than later. Do you think that's going to happen sooner than later with?
It doesn't look like it.
No.
It's like ride hailing as it continues to be a problem. But there are examples in the world where they don't have ride-hailing.
But we don't have
like
ride-hailing.
So
and the taxis are all screwed up.
Yeah.
And Coast Mountain buses are now moving towards this week. I mean, by the time this podcast is out, that'll be Monday. And as of Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, there will be no transit.
So no buses, no
C-bus. You'll still have SkyTrain
in Canada
for now.
For now, they're talking too.
They're very. I think it was like 96% in favor of a strike at SkyTrain and Canada Line, and then CN, the rail, which apparently won't affect commuters. They're also in the.
Even the West Coast Express.
It won't affect the West Coast Express. Okay. They have announced, but can you believe it?
I'd say how are people? Enjoy U.S. Thanksgiving.
Well, how's everybody going to get around? This is just the beginning too.
This is why I like to live and work close to home.
I feel for people that don't.
It's brutal. And I think that for me, I think we talked about this last time, employers are going to have to figure out ways. You're going to have to work from home if you can. But some people, restaurants, you can't work from home if you're a server in a restaurant. What about the elderly person
that used the bus to get to their medical appointment?
Yes. Yeah.
What do they do now? They just sit in their home and don't get their medical.
University students. Everything.
So does government come in and mandate this?
They will.
But how long do?
I don't know. It's up to the premier really. They could go in there and make the deal.
Yeah.
A mandate to get back to work, essential services and all that. So, I think this will be a definite call to action for the premier, and we'll see what he does. But I can't see it going beyond next week as far as not being able to, they can't shut the province down.
Yeah.
So essential service. So the premier is going to have to do what he thought he would never have to do, which is push the unions and the management to a deal.
We're seeing similar in the level of discussion that's happening with the BCTF and the government in terms of basically it's everything's on the table for bargaining, and then they're like, but it's the 2, 2, and 2 because that's the Me Too. So that's take it or leave it.
Yeah.
There's this. It's what are we wasting time here? I was curious. What are the union dues in BC for?
I saw you tweet that out.
Yeah,
I'm
curious of that.
I was a member of the union when I was at CBC a long time ago, but I can't remember.
I'd love
I think
to
you
find
don't
that out.
notice it, right? It's like taxes. You get your paycheck and it's got this much money on it, and that's what you have to spend.
But if BC's union dues are higher than Alberta's union dues, and that's something that comes off the teachers' and net salary, then maybe there's more than just.
It's a good question that I think somebody who likes doing that kind of research should do, because I think it's a good thing for the NDP to potentially have to show it when they have to if they have to make a tough decision.
Yeah.
They can represent so well here in British Columbia, whatever. But I think most unions like not to talk about their dues.
Totally, and with all due respect, I just want to know the numbers, right? Teachers need to be supported in the classroom to get the job done to teach kids, because when education fails, society fails. We need to stop this dance.
But then you have this other argument that I had with somebody just yesterday about the fact that he was saying that a bus driver makes more money than a teacher. And I'm like, okay, is that true? I don't know, but if that is true, what does that say about, I say that a bus driver deserves to make a good living, and so does a teacher. What it says maybe there are unions, because if you give teachers a huge raise, of course there are more teachers than there are bus drivers, the significant impact on our budgets would be huge. But it's a good question. Why is that? Why did that union manage to do such a good job getting that salary up for bus drivers, as well as a teachers union, which isn't really it's a federation?
Was the person you were having that discussion with a man?
He was.
Okay.
Why?
Because I could argue that the female bus driver doesn't make the same as the male bus driver, or the female whatever doesn't make, because you want to talk about employment equity and equal pay. This is not, it's not, that's an apples and oranges scenario in my opinion.
I think there were,
I like where you were going with that. You can't just look at that and say, well, that's not right.
No,
teachers should make more than bus drivers. You know what?
We've talked about teachers. Teachers deserve to make a good. I want my teachers to be happy,
100%.
making a good living, teaching my kids, and not having to feel stressed out about how much money they're bringing home. And we have a challenge where the Lower Mainland, it costs more to live than it does up north. So what does that mean?
And the salaries are lower.
But there's no flexibility.
Salaries are literally lower in Vancouver than they are in North Vancouver or in Burnaby, and. Teachers are leaving to go just across the border.
Of living they leave.
Yeah.
Same as doctors, same as nurses.
Right. So we have a greater issue that we'll be talking about here on UnSpun moving forward.
As the next continues.
But
teachers are next. And then
this is the spin,
though.
This is the spin that we get caught in, because we don't actually know. What are you talking about? What's happening at the mediation table? Because the two sides are so... and I follow along very closely. I'm not friends. I'm a colleague, I guess, because I've spoken with both sides. I believe that both sides of this standoff really do want to fix what's broken and do it in a way that doesn't start a domino falling through the public sector that, can't be hauled back.
Well,
right?
You look at the early 80s when we had that whole provincial-wide strikes that were going on with Art Cupey, was it, I think, leading them? Is that where we're heading? That everybody's going to start, I think the NDP are in a very precarious position with a minority government and heading into another election in 2 years.
Yeah.
This is their big base. But then where are they going to go, this base? They're not going to go and vote BC Liberals, these union people that support the NDP. So in some ways there's some certain arrogance that NDP might have towards unions, thinking, well, we got that vote.
Yeah.
Which
seems to be the case. Interesting too, as you're bringing up the minority government and the way things are sort of set up, well, the way they are set up. politically in British Columbia. And now, even more so across the country, it's like nobody wants an election called right now.
Right.
Because everything's just like...
Yeah, Jean Chrétien, that was a good clip of Jean Chrétien saying that none of these people want an election. Not one of these parties wants an election right now, so, it's not even on the table.
So you have to work together.
Yeah.
That's what I liked about Chrétien's clip, is that it's like, they don't want an election, 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 so they all have to come together at the table and make it work in the meantime. And hopefully somebody rises to the occasion. One party rises out of it to capture sort of that public attention, and maybe people go, oh, we need that party in charge of everything.
It's interesting, going back to our earlier conversation about Chrystia Freeland.
Yes.
I wonder if that's also a strategy, it's Trudeau's exit strategy, that he knows he probably can't run again as the Prime Minister.
It's been too much.
The chances of him winning again are very unlikely.
Yeah.
And so they need to have a transition strategy, and that she's part of that plan to put somebody in place to take over for him prior to the next election.
You heard it here first. That is a good one.
Yes.
Until you said it, I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Yes. Well, leadership is everything in the end. Going back to your comment about how do you make where is the middle, but quite often it comes down and who decides what a party will stand for, and it usually comes from the leader. And we've talked about this before, of that party, whether it be provincial, federal, or locally. The leader and his team behind him drive the agenda once they're in place, and the behind the scenes and whether you're having a convention or not, generally the team that are behind the leader will drive the agenda and drive the policies moving forward, and which leads me to the NPA.
Right, which you were tweeting about.
Yes,
so
today.
Let's go municipal now. What's happening? So as of the time this will drop, it'll be like later today.
Yeah, that's right. So it's Monday night, the 25th, is NPA's board election. And this board, the way the board is structured, they have, the NPA is the political party in Vancouver that I was a member of.
Non-partisan association.
They're the sort of right of center party. We've Gordon Campbell, Sam Sullivan.
Ken Sim most recently.
Ken Sim ran, lost by 900 votes. And so there are a lot of people running, and a lot of those people, whoever wins, will be there for the next election. So and it drives me crazy a bit about the board of NPA. There's always these people who think that their job as a board is to decide policies and tell the councillors what to do, and that is not what they're supposed to do.
What are they supposed to do?
That is what conventions are meant to be for, and what leadership is about. They're supposed to be able to set up the convention, raise money,
support the councillors,
researchers to help if you have to do research, or that kind of stuff. The people who are elected cannot be influenced by a specific interest group. It's not fair to even do that. And so there are people who are running for this board that I see that's what they think their job is. And I hope that the membership of the NPA, who will do their research before they vote tomorrow, and vote for the people that I think will be the most open-minded and therefore the better of Vancouver. And the NPA, nonpartisan association, while people think that's ironic and hypocritical or whatever, the basic mandate of the NPA within its own constitution is that it's made up of people from all walks of life in Vancouver to represent the city as a whole. That was the whole meaning of it. And if you look historically, they were always made up of quite diverse people from the left, from Gordon Price to Gordon McCampbell, two people who are pretty, Gordon Price is left of center for sure, and there are other people who were definitely left of center that were within and elected with the NPA, and they didn't vote, lockstep like Vision did. And Vision really changed the way people think council runs in Vancouver. And right now we have a council that's mixed up, several parties. But the NPA historically,
which was by design by the voter, because they didn't like lockstep.
That's right.
They didn't like backroom. You don't need to be savvy about politics in Vancouver to know exactly why Vision isn't in anymore.
That's right. 100%. People got tired of that arrogance. Yeah. And what we see now in this council is they caucus in real time.
Yes.
Whereas,
which also takes a lot of time.
It takes up a lot of time. Whereas if you have a party, you caucus behind the scenes, and then you find out where we all stand, and then you go in there and you go, okay, well, we know what's going to happen. Yeah. And you don't waste as much time, for staff especially. So it's going to be interesting.
How many people on the board?
Oh my God. Well, I don't know. There was like 20 or 30 people running. And I think there's like 8 positions available.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people running. I will say that Mark Angus, who's the current president and chair, has been doing a great job. and two other people who've come to me who I know quite well, Dave Payson and Jenny Richards, have been very good volunteers over the years. Dave's run for council, but he's not. I think it's important that people who go into a board, in the case of politics, are not planning to run for office too. I think
This isn't a
it's
stepping
different
stone.
thing. This is not a stepping stone. Go in there and do the work.
This is a bit of influence, a little bit of a voice of where you're coming from to be a part of it.
And I think that goes for any political
I want
party.
we're getting shorter on time because I started the clock late.
I know, so I was trying to figure out what was going on there.
I'm a little off today. The chandelier. I definitely want to talk about this $1.2 million chandelier underneath the Granville Street Bridge, right by Vancouver House, that Blade building. It's going to be a main fixture in what will be an artist's community at the foot of Vancouver House. $1.2 million. It will unwind and then wind back up twice daily.
Probably on New Year's Eve, maybe.
Every day.
I think it's amazing. I mean, I voted for it. I thought it was great. And
why did you vote for it?
We voted for the whole project, and that was part of the project. That was the amenity. So the developer's paying for it, not the taxpayers. It's part of
Big point. Say that again.
Yeah, so the developer's paying for this, not the taxpayers. Although you could argue that amenity, that community amenity contribution, which is what you give as a developer when you get extra density, and you go through a public hearing for this. But to me, he gave a lot of other stuff. There's a bunch of social housing down there that he's paying for as well. So when
I didn't know this. I didn't know it. I was all ready to be all like about the chandelier, and then I did some research. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's kind of cool then.
And I think that there's that chandelier should be housing. I mean, we all know housing is important, but we also know the beauty of Vancouver is all the different things that is in it. Parks,
we love the laughing man,
which Chip Wilson paid for because the city was going to get rid of them. And so it was really important that for Chip, he said, I'm going to pay for that, $5 million. He gave the city to keep them there. That was an unusual situation. But in the case of the chandelier, it was a decision that we made. It was part of the development. It was paid for by the developer. The neighborhood itself is it's quite diverse as far as who's going to live there. There's social housing. There's high-end condos. There's grocery stores. There's everything.
People who are mad at the chandelier, knowing what you just explained, aren't as mad now.
I hope so.
I want to talk about people who maybe aren't as mad now. The NIMBYs in Dunbar.
Yeah.
The not in my backyard.
The neighborhood group said they're open to this.
They
more
turned,
housing.
Because it's a ghost town. I'm horrified by the Dunbar area. I love Dunbar. I grew up near it, going through it, going around it. It used to be this hustling, bustling, thriving, walkable neighborhood where, people were just out and about and doing their thing, and markets, and Stong's parking lot was a howl.
And they sold their homes and moved to Olympic Village. Yeah. I think that is. I mean, we'll talk maybe more on Thursday about this, because this is coming to council this week. This is a whole bunch of density that they're going to add on streets, off the main streets. I don't understand it. I'm going to watch what happens, because we have the city plan that's happening, and now they're going to throw this in. But while they're in the middle of city plan, I don't quite get the logic behind this. I would say if you're doing city plan, then hold back. Put the plan together.
And then implement.
And then implement these things. So,
but their panic move right now, right? There's a bit of a panic. I hope they do gentle density. I keep talking about it. Maybe I need to write about it in the middle. I probably will head there.
We've talked about kits, because I think if you look at kits, you look at the 3-story walk-ups, they're all over the place, plus houses, plus condos.
Or you take those big
parks,
single-family, huge houses on massive plots of land and put 6 small, detached buildings on there and call them whatever you want to call them, but give people a space of their own.
Whether they're rented or owned.
Whatever.
Just start getting
more of it.
Creative and move faster. It's not about what the project is. It's just get them done.
Just get them done.
Oh my God, get
just
this
build
pipeline moving.
Yeah, build something. I'm there on my middle this week. I was ranting. I painted myself. Seatbelts and school buses. Come on. I tell a story of how the seatbelt law, when it came into effect, on the day it came into effect, actually was kind of a joke. That I looked at my friend visiting from Alberta. I'm like, buckle up. And little did I know that we would be in a horrific car accident later that day. And had we not been wearing seatbelts, we would not be here. And that we don't have seatbelts in school buses
or any buses for that matter.
Any buses,
like,
but school buses, like children in buses. Why are there? And I'm getting inundated with people like, who's going to pay for that? I'm like, I don't care.
I don't understand.
I don't care.
The people who build buses?
That's what I said. Oh, now it's going to be a tax for people? I said, no, it's a bus company that rents buses to schools. They have to mandatory seatbelt. Done.
Yeah, I've never understood it. Why
I'm so mad about it.
There's a whole bunch of people that have seatbelts in buses. Their whole campaign, change.org, has a seatbelts in buses campaign. So.
Have you ever seen the video of kids thrown around in a school bus? Okay. We don't need that.
No.
Buckle up, people. It's me on a Sunday.
The middle, in the Orca.
The Orca.ca. Read it. Thank you, George. _Affleck at Jody Vance. Thanks for watching UnSpun. We'll be back with you Thursday with lots to talk about.